Chapter 42 to 43. Curious. Dr. Brief stroked his magnificent mustache as he examined the readouts from the machine, which was hooked up to Bulma's head via several electrodes. I'm not detecting any sort of abnormal brain activity. Are you sure it's still happening? It wasn't just a one-off thing? I'm pretty sure. Bulma indicated the plastic side of the machine, now half covered with number 7-shaped indentations. I scratched those just now without even realizing. How strange. Her father turned the machine off, and she pulled the electrodes off of her head, standing up and following him out of the room. I know, right? She said eagerly. Her scientific curiosity outweighed any fear of the unknown. It's so specific, though. Do you think it might be a message? Dr. Brief nodded. It's possible. Given that we can't detect the source, it's entirely possible that it's some kind of message from a higher intelligence, more sophisticated than us. But if so, what's so important about the number 7? 7 what? Exactly. She frowned, rubbing her head. It's so vague. Is it a place? A time? A person? She shrugged. I've been around a lot of experimental tech recently. Maybe it's damaged my brain somehow, and it doesn't mean anything. I could just be going crazy. Well, I wouldn't jump to conclusions like that. Oh, just a minute, dear. He noticed a passing scientist, and rushed off in pursuit of him, his brain as always trying to do everything at once. Simmons. Have you got the test results? We don't want another resonance cascade. Bulma sighed. That's my dad for you, he can't stand still for 5 seconds. She rounded the corner, intent on continuing the investigation on her own, but bumped into a familiar figure. Oh. Hey, Goku. Hi. The powerfully built, yet friendly, man standing in the corridor waved. Didn't see you come in. Yeah, I move pretty fast. So, did you want anything? Well, yeah, no, He stopped, thinking. I just wanted to see you alive, back at work. To know that the world's back to normal, you know? Bulma laughed. Oh, come on, Goku, of course it is. Thanks to you, anyway. Hey, it wasn't all me. He protested. But do you see what I mean? When you died, I almost lost myself. It was too much. I can't. If we'd lost, you'd have been gone forever, and Tien and Yamcha and everybody. Don't forget yourself, she reminded him. The Earth would be a lot worse off without its hero. He shook his head. No, that doesn't matter. You've got to understand, I wouldn't care if I had to die. If you're all safe, that's what matters. She nodded. Yeah, I know that. You're a good guy, you know. I guess that bump on the head when you were a kid left you a clean slate, and your grandpa only taught you how to be a good person. You never knew how to be anything else. Sure. He leaned against the wall, looking downcast. Goku? What's the matter? He hesitated. Raditz? Yeah. She sighed. Oh, boy. I wish I could say I know how you feel, but I don't, of course. Just know, he only did what you'd do. It was you or him, and out of the two, you had the power to stop Cell. I know. He pounded on the side of his head with one hand. I know. But I can't help thinking about it. Going through it in my mind. There must have been another way. There's always a better way. I should have been able to save everybody. You're not a god, Goku. No, he said grimly, I'm not. I've met gods, and surpassed them. He started pacing up and down the corridor. I don't know, I guess you're right. I can't be everywhere, but I wish I could. I wish I could save everybody. Do you know, I even feel a little guilty about killing Cell. She laughed despite herself. Yeah, that's you all right. Try not to stay sad like this for too long. It doesn't suit you. And she stopped talking as his outline faded and he vanished, leaving at supersonic speeds. Frowning, she looked down, seeing she'd found a pencil somewhere, and the wall was dotted with hastily scribbled 7s. Okay, seriously, she shouted in frustration. 7 what? Tien looked up from his meditations. He'd sensed the approaching key, and eventually heard the footsteps, as the traveler approached his and Kaioshin's mountain home. Reluctantly, he opened his eyes and stood up, as the arrival approached him, cloaked in several layers of clothing against the biting winds. She pulled down her hood, revealing herself as Launch. Finally, she grumbled. You couldn't just live somewhere I can drive to like everybody else? Hi, launch. Tien led her inside, where Kaioshin was cooking dinner, hovering a few feet above the ground to be level with the cooker, small as he was. Oh, hey there, the friendly Jiangshi asterisk called, waving and then turning his attention back to the meal. Launch slumped down in the nearest chair, throwing off her traveling robes into an untidy heap on the floor. She unslung a bundle of cloth from her back, cradling it in her arms. This timeline's break, asleep at the moment. So, you dropped by for a reason? Tien asked, sitting in the chair opposite her. I mean, people don't usually take hikes into the mountains just to say hi. Sure, she said. I need someone to train me. He blinked. Well, I don't see why not, any particular reason? She nodded. Yeah. When I next see Raditz, I'm not gonna be so fragile. See him next? You mean in Otherworld? She scowled. No, stupid. Before then. Hate to break it to you, but he's dead. He shrugged. You accept it, he won't let us bring him back. Launch shook her head. Sorry I snapped at you, I don't expect you to understand. But we'll meet again, in this life. I know that for a fact, just like I know the sky's blue and the grass is green. I just know it. Trust me, will ya? He smiled. Well, if you say so. So, you want me to train you? How strong do you want to get? What are you aiming for? I want to be as strong as he is. Not in Super Saiyan, but his normal form. Can't be done. Sorry, maybe a few years ago, but the Saiyans we know have just gotten so powerful recently, humans can't catch up with even their base form. What about the Kaioshin? Even with that, well, maybe I could match Goku's base form for a few seconds, maybe even have a slight advantage, but it'd be so much effort it wouldn't be worth trying to sustain that level. So basically, no, it can't be done. She snorted. I'll tell you what can't be done when I've tried it for myself. Now, let's get started. Now. Kaioshin's about to make dash. Now. Asterisk, author's note, I am informed that Kaioshin is based on the Jiangshi of mythology, a creature something like a vampire. Of course, he doesn't exactly match the description, but I'm going to go with it, as he clearly isn't human or he wouldn't look so childlike by the end of the show. And while this measurement of power level is proportional to strength, speed and actual amount of ki, it would be foolish to suggest they all scale linearly. Gohan sat back at his desk, feeling pleased with himself. He was finally going to contribute something to the world, on his own terms. He'd fought, and saved lives, when he'd been forced to, but he'd never felt like a true warrior, more like a caged beast to be launched at an enemy. This was different. So many people's lives would improve, man would become Superman within a generation. Chi-Chi walked in, handing him his lunch. Here you go, she said. How's it going? Pretty good. He indicated the screen. His mother had even bought him a computer for the express purpose of writing his book with its first, half-typed chapter. I'm starting with a chapter explaining what ki is and why it's not a great idea to try and measure it like the aliens in Frieza's empire did. He had about half the book planned out in his mind. The second chapter was going to be an explanation of how to actually use ki, and some basic training exercises, and the final few chapters would be a summary of their adventures and battles, particularly the ones that had affected the Earth or the galaxy in a big way. Well, I'm sure you know what you're doing. I'm just glad that after I spent all those years telling you to use your head and not just your fists, you finally listened, she joked, heading out. Right. He turned back to the book in progress, taking a bite out of his sandwich. And on the whole, spiritual methods of detecting ki seem to work better than technological, though that is not to say. And now, as promised, it's time for the break through the limit dead zone, extremely short-lived special. During the time of peace after Piccolo's defeat and before Raditz's arrival. Piccolo relaxed as the dust settled around him and the roar of energy faded back into the barren wasteland's usual silence. He could already tell his training was paying off. He was almost twice as powerful now as he'd been 2 years ago, at the World Tournament. Still, the time wasn't right yet, he'd know. He had patience. His father had waited for decades to enact his plan for world domination, he could wait a few more years. He looked around slowly. Some kind of energy signature approaching, he frowned. More than one. Goku and his friends? No, they wouldn't attack me for no reason. Staying on his guard, he waited for them to approach. There was a hiss of wind as a humanoid figure rushed past him, trying to intimidate the white-clad demon by passing extremely close by at high speed, then pulling away. Piccolo didn't respond as two more did the same, all settling on top of rock columns around him. He snorted. Are you finished? Who the hell are you supposed to be, and what do you want with me? A fourth figure, tall and over-muscled, with dark green skin and an almost reptilian face, hovered in the air in front of Piccolo as the others surrounded him. Slowly, the leader nodded, and the other three leapt forwards, their features now revealed in the midday sun. They were grotesque, demonic, almost gargoyle-like in appearance, dressed in bright, extravagant colors, with equally ridiculous hairstyles. One wielded a pair of short swords, the second had a single two-handed blade, and the third simply balled its fists as it charged. Piccolo grinned. Finally. A good workout. 3 blades swung for Piccolo, but simply swished through his discarded cape and turban, cutting them to ribbons. The unarmed creature was slightly quicker, and turned just in time to have both of Piccolo's feet rammed into its chest, flying back into a cliff face and boring into the rock with the force of the kick. Twisting in the air, Piccolo caught the long sword between his hands, rolling backwards head over heels and throwing the wielder over his head. The demon tumbled through the air at supersonic speeds, crashing into its two sword-holding ally. It let out a strangled cry, falling away, a short sword embedded in its stomach. The other gargoyle stared in shock as its comrade died, black blood staining the sand before evaporating under the harsh sun. You. The still-standing demon whispered, raising its remaining sword. You're a monster. I'll ask you one more time. Piccolo's afterimage faded, and he stood inches from the cowering creature. What do you want? Fearful, it glanced towards its motionless master, still watching events unfold. Well, go on, the muscular leader said in a high, grating voice, answer him. Don't be rude. Dash. Too slow. Piccolo wrenched the henchman's head from its shoulders, casting it aside with contempt as the body fell to the floor without its key-supported flight. Feeling a faint energy signal from the one he'd thrown into the cliff, he launched a dispersed yellow energy wave that sent massive explosions rippling out for miles around, incinerating the final minion. Piccolo then turned his attention to the leader. Now, you tell me. Fun as this has been, I don't appreciate these pathetic attempts on my life. Why, you. The dark green monster ground its fangs, glaring at him with slitted eyes. Those are not exactly easy to replace, you know. It sighed, recovering its composure. The reason we've come is simple. My name is Garlic Jr. Piccolo snickered. What? It demanded. No, carry on. Piccolo tried to avoid grinning. Garlic? Really? His parents must not have been fond of him. It is a junior, perhaps it's his grandparents that were cruel. As I was saying, I am the great and mighty Lord Garlic Jr., and this planet is soon to be mine. Why? What? Why do you want to take over the world? Garlic Jr. snorted. Impatient, isn't he? It was before your time, my father was in competition with the one known as Kami for the role of Guardian of the Earth. Kami was chosen, and when my father tried to claim the Guardian's throne by force, he was imprisoned for all eternity. Since then I have been gathering my strength, and now I shall usurp that foolish Guardian. The Earth will be plunged into eternal, terrible night. It really would have been much simpler to just give my father the throne, you know. And where do I fit in? I was getting there. Garlic snapped. It is well known that you harbor designs for the Earth yourself. I won't have you stealing my prize, consider this a preemptive strike. Piccolo considered this. You're a fool, he concluded. What did you say? Piccolo appeared right in front of Garlic, throwing a quick punch, which the demon caught, holding it back in both hands with some effort. I said, you're a fool. Or didn't you hear me the first time? He smiled. Your plan didn't involve the Dragon Balls, did it? As a matter of fact. Garlic shoved Piccolo away, stumbling back a couple of steps. Once you're dealt with, I shall gather them and have the dragon make me immortal, then my victory is assured. The force of that punch, he shouldn't be this strong. What's happening? Ahahaha. Piccolo burst out laughing. Excellent plan. You clearly haven't done your homework, you imbecile. My life force is linked with Kami's. If you kill me, he dies too, and the Dragon Balls disappear. Garlic scowled. Well, if you're both dead, nobody will be left to stop me. I wouldn't count on it. Piccolo settled into his demon-style fighting stance. I've come to realize this planet is home to many formidable warriors. You wouldn't last long. One guy in particular would take you down, no problem. Of course, that assumes you can beat me, and let's get one thing clear. I'm going to rule this world and not you, or anybody else, can stand in my way. Hiya. Piccolo and Garlic vanished, reappearing atop a nearby rock spire, rapidly trading blows. Piccolo ducked a high kick, sweeping Garlic's legs out from under him and elbowed him down through the spire, collapsing it on top of the demon. Piccolo exhaled heavily. He'd already been tired from his training before the fight had begun. That should keep him down for a few. Garlic cannoned into him from below, driving a fist into his face. Piccolo spun away through the air, righting himself in time to block the follow-up kick. He stepped inside Garlic's defenses and hammered home another punch, but the demon held its ground. Growling, Piccolo darted to the side as Garlic's arm swung past him again, and launched a spinning back kick that knocked Garlic away. The heavily muscled monster took a deep breath. This is ridiculous. My minions alone should have been able to deal with him easily, yet he's actually proving a challenge for me. He ducked left, avoiding Piccolo's leading attack as he charged, creating an opening which Garlic exploited. He swung both hands around, gripped together in a double-fisted hammer blow that sent Piccolo flying. The smaller villain grunted in irritation as he arced through the air. All right, time to end this little game. I'll use my full power. Ha! Now do you see? Garlic taunted, unaware of his impending doom. I am invincible. I cannot be defeated by the likes of you. What say you to that? Piccolo had, in fact, one particular thing to say to that, as he appeared in a blur of speed behind Garlic. Masenko, J. And so ends the tale of a would-be conqueror who, had he just arrived a couple of years earlier, or in a different timeline, like Canon DBZ, would have provided a decent challenge. As it is, the event was so unremarkable that if Piccolo was asked later if he remembered a Garlic Jr., he'd simply shake his head and remind you that there's no need for seasoning. Silly, Namekians don't eat food. Hercule sat in his sparse gym, downcast. A string of utterly destroyed punching bags lay on the floor, testament to the rage he'd taken out on the room. He sat silently on the edge of the central ring, going through the fight over and over. There really was nothing he could have done differently. His technique was flawless. Goku had just been too fast and strong to overcome. How could this have happened? I worked my whole life to climb to the top, to be the best in the world. And now it's meaningless. Where's the justice in that? I don't deserve this. He looked up at the sound of footsteps. Hey, Dad. Videl waved cautiously as she approached. Oh, hi there, Videl. Hercule sighed. She nodded, sensing the direction of his thinking. I know. She sat down, squeezing his hand. I feel the same way, kind of. But don't let it get you down, okay? It's not like you. But, it's not fair, Videl, it isn't. Hey. She looked up into her father's eyes, full of concern. It's not their fault. They just wanted the truth known, they weren't trying to hurt us. I've talked to them, you know, they're ordinary, nice people. Please don't get bitter. He sniffed. She's right. I have to be better than this, for her. Without her mother here, I'm all she's got. All right. Do you understand, though? It's hard. I thought I was worth something, but it turns out I'm weak. Useless. It isn't like that. Think about it. Videl tapped her head. 99% of the people in the world are in the same boat as us. And of those 99%, who's the most skilled martial artist? Who, in other words, has a head start on catching up to these key users? I didn't think of that. He stroked his chin, contemplating. Yeah, trying to improve is better than giving up, anyway, right? Right. I know you can be number one again, Dad. She beamed, but her thoughts were of a darker tone. It's mostly true, mostly. He has the potential to be one of the strongest humans in the world, but as for the Scions, none of us will ever catch up to the likes of them. Still, he doesn't need to know that yet. He has to have hope, at least for now. The roar of energy shook the afterlife training grounds, punctuated by the shouts signifying signature moves. Blitz Cannon. Hyper Tornado. Crusher Ball. Thunder Flash. 17 grueling minutes from the first blow, the dust settled. Piccolo, training weights discarded and wearing his simple martial arts outfit he'd had on underneath the weighted robes, stood shakily, panting, but on his feet. Raditz, great gashes scored into his armor and having lost the energy to maintain Super Saiyan, lay face down in the dirt, in his own scorched crater. Piccolo settled into a cross-legged sitting position. That he said wearily, was the best fight I've had in 300 years. Raditz pulled his face out of the dirt, spitting out dust and shaking his waist-length hair out. Wow, you're pretty strong. I have to admit, you didn't look like much at first, but you're really something. Piccolo nodded. Your appearance was deceiving, too. I didn't expect it to be even close. With enough training here, you'll go far. Raditz slowly sat up, sighing as his bruised limbs ached. Well. That gives me a goal at least. I'll be looking for a rematch someday, you know. Piccolo grinned. I'll look forwards to it. Raditz looked up, hearing the sound of an approaching ego. King Kai was hopping and skipping over to the pair of tired warriors. Raditz. Stop getting yourself into fights, that's my job. What? As usual, the god's conversation was a step ahead of everyone else's, leaving Raditz baffled. Well, I was just over there arguing with the West Kai over there. He was saying Piccolo was stronger than you, but I disagreed. I guess he was right. The familiar North Kai shrugged, looking forlorn. At least you didn't last too much longer, we were about to start betting on the outcome. He wandered off, shaking his head. It's a shame, really, I had this whole thing planned out, a grand tournament, a great spectacle to decide who's the strongest fighter in Otherworld, with all the afterlife watching. And these two settle it in less than half an hour, in some random field. No sense of occasion. Raditz remained slightly confused as King Kai left. West Kai. Oh, he noticed another portly figure approaching Piccolo, a god similar in appearance to King Kai, with purple skin, a single curled antenna and a monocle over his left eye. Well, I guess he did say there were others, the afterlife sure is a weird place. Future timeline. Android 17 and 18 stood atop a rocky outcrop, looking down at the settlement below, now supplied with the food and shelter they'd need to last through the coming winter in a few months. As it turned out, infinite energy reactors had simply meant that the androids would never fully run out of power, they could still get tired, and indeed they had. 17's scarf was tied around his head to keep the sun off and 18's jacket around her waist, both with their sleeves rolled up and dirt on their hands and faces for perhaps the first time. 17 had grumbled and complained through the whole thing, but 18 could tell he wasn't serious, he wasn't going to refuse these people the help they needed. Hey. He said, now that they had a spare minute. 18. Yeah. Why did you want to come here? I mean, really? I told you, to help these people those other versions of us spent all these years terrorizing. She shrugged. What's wrong with that? He shook his head. You know what I mean, what made you decide? It's not the kind of decision most people make on the spur of the moment. Heroes may be, true altruists, but let's face it, heroes we're not, as much as we try to avoid becoming the villains. 18 paused, considering the question. Do you remember being inside Cell? She asked quietly. Yeah. 17 shivered. Don't remind me. Try and describe the feeling. Well, it was like being lost in darkness, I guess. I couldn't find myself. She began to add to it, and soon they were finishing each other's statements. I couldn't find you, or anything familiar. Just darkness. I could feel Cell's mind the whole time. A twisted, evil thing. He didn't care about anything except his own personal gain, and I realized. That was us. I was looking at what Dr. Gero intended for me, the goal that I was just a step towards, and it terrified me. We were so close to becoming just like him, she finished. He nodded morosely. I know what you mean, so you just wanted to reject Gero's ideas? Spite the old man. Something like that. I decided to be the best I could, give my all to the exact opposite of what he and Cell stood for. But the past didn't need us. This world does. Right, we're free here. It's funny, the evil versions of us thought they had absolute freedom, but they still just played the roles set out for them. Come on, now. He turned to face the sun as it sank towards the horizon. Let's forget what we were made for. Nobody can tell us what to do now. I guess that's all it's ever been about, really. Freedom. Raditz knew this dream. It wasn't the first time, nor would it be the last. But the ending was always different. Which would it be this time? What would he say? He was in a corridor. It stretched out into infinity, into darkness. He knew, though, that if he kept walking he'd find the end, after a distance beyond distance, a time past time. And sure enough, an infinity passed in an instant. He stood at the end of the passage. A large stone door barred his path, and he heaved it open. Stone wasn't heavy for him in real life, but here it felt like lifting a city. Through the door lay a large chamber, lit by flickering torchlight, but the source of the light was always out of sight. He never saw any torches or candles. He didn't bother looking for them, he'd had this dream enough. But this time, would this be different? It was the first time he'd slept since arriving in Otherworld. As it turned out, one of the consequences of keeping one's body in the afterlife was that it still required a living body's upkeep, albeit a reduced amount, only 1 meal a day and 1 sleep a week. For instance, an Otherworld body was much more energy efficient. The dream continued, as it always did. The room was bare but for a set of black stone steps in the center, leading up to a throne, draped in animal furs, decorated with exotic skulls and shrouded in darkness. Face hidden in the shadows above, he sat on the throne, Raditz, only unexpelled demon of the past. Bardock. His father. And this was where the dream always changed. Sometimes they'd talk, as if Bardock had never died. Sometimes the dream would simply end. Sometimes Bardock would turn away and leave, seeming disappointed. Still other times he'd simply sit there silent and unmoving until Raditz awoke. What would it be tonight? Somehow, being dead, Raditz felt bolder. As if it put them on equal terms, in a strange way. This time, for the first time, he spoke first. Father. Bardock stirred. His face became visible as he leaned forwards. The errant son returns, from the wayward path. The voice, its quality, it was him. It wasn't distant, or blurred by time and faulty memory, like usual. This was his father speaking to him. Are you, really here? Raditz asked. Now that I'm in the afterlife, is this really you? Or is it all in my head? Bardock shook his head. Fool. It is both real and in your mind. You are in the realm of the mind now, there is no difference here. What happened to your soul? You weren't put into that machine. No. But nor could I pass into heaven, and neither was I pure enough of mind to count among the heroes or villains of legend. No, my soul was one of the unlucky few who were simply lost. I am neither here nor there, in a way, I'm not even aware we're having this conversation. You're just perceiving that we are. Why are you here? What's so important about this dream? Raditz began to climb the steps. Simple. Bardock shrugged. I weigh on your mind. You've accepted that you're morally good, but you doubt your worth as a warrior. You know how I died, and you worry that you will never live up to me. Raditz was shaken slightly by his father's blunt, brief manner. Why? Why should I fear that? Didn't I die in just a heroic a manner as you? Why should I fear your disapproval? Bardock smirked. Don't ask me. I am, after all, only here because you do fear it. Working out why is your task. Then what are you here for? To test you. At that, Bardock sprang up, a right hook smashing Raditz across the face. As the long-haired scion tumbled back through the air, the world around him shifted. Planets and stars faded into view around them. Father and son hovered in the void of space. To test me. Raditz growled, trying to gather his ki but finding it difficult for some reason. What the hell is this? Defend yourself. Bardock ordered, charging again. Raditz blocked the older warrior's kick with his forearm, moving back to put distance between himself and his attacker. Stop this, father. I don't want to fight you. And that's your problem. Bardock pressed the attack, and his speed seemed to increase as his fists flew with unrelenting force. The fourth punch slipped through Raditz's guard, and he fell away again, grimacing. What's the matter? I thought you'd outgrown this, or are you the same wimp that brought disgrace to my family on planet Vegeta? No. No. Raditz lunged, but his fist stopped just short of Bardock's face. He hesitated, wavering, and in that moment Bardock grabbed his arm and threw him overhead, following with a two-footed kick to the back. Better. But not good enough. Have years of fighting taught you nothing? Raditz forced himself upright. I can't. I can't fight you, father. That's because you know you'll win. Bardock spat. The speed of that punch, I couldn't have blocked it. You still idolize me. I'm not a man to you, I'm your father, let go. Allow yourself to surpass me. You have surpassed me. I can't just let go of you. Raditz sniffed, wiping blood trickling from his nose. Then what do I have left? What can I hold on to? Yourself. Your friends. Your new family. There's no one in the whole universe I'd rather have by my side than them. And you know, like Launch knows, that you'll meet again. Trust yourself for once, alright? You're not a Scion warrior anymore, you don't have to be. You don't have to live up to me, I'm not a great role model, trust me on that. Ha! Raditz grinned bitterly. Are you really here? Or is my subconscious just trying to tell me something? I told you, Bardock said. Both. Well, if you believe in me. His eyes narrowed as his ki built within him, finally bursting out as he transformed, his golden aura shining. Then I will too. He smiled as he realized this was the first time he'd been able to become a Super Saiyan in a dream. It felt just as empowering as when he'd first transformed, like he could take on the world. Bardock smiled and nodded. There. Now you believe, that you deserve it. He spread his arms, accepting defeat. Finish it. Lay me to rest. Goodbye, Bardock, greatest fighter of your age. He powered up an energy blast in one hand. But this is a new age, I guess, if you ever come back somehow, I hope you get a chance to be the good person I know you could have been. So long, Hyea. He flung the beam at his father, the bright yellow blaze enveloping the battle-scarred soldier and obliterating him, purging Raditz's mind, searing through his mental pathways and finally eliminating his self-doubt. Gohan sat back, exhausted, he'd spent the whole day writing. Sooner or later I'm going to run out of information I just know from memory, I'm going to have to do some research. Admittedly, that's not too hard when you can fly faster than the speed of sound, at least. He got up and stretched. Well, anyway. That's later. Right now, I smell something good cooking.